Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Sana Maqbool with you at PTV World. In today's show, we're going to be taking a look at the concerns that have been raised by the Foreign Office, something that has been done previously as well with regards to the illicit trade of radioactive materials in India. And this is something that has been put forward back in 2021 as well, where a number of such arrests took place, where such radioactive material was found, and of course is evident of a black market of these materials. Also, of course, pointing towards the lack of safety and security measures in place by India to making sure that any such radioactive materials are protected and are not found in the black market. We've seen another arrest of 3 individuals who had possession of about 50 grams of such radioactive material. And this is again something that has pointed towards this concern with reference to what it is that we're going to be doing moving forward and how is it that India will be able to provide this assurance. Of course, Pakistan has called for a true investigation into this. How exactly does a sealed radioactive material actually reach the market? And then, of course, with reference to what the international community is going to be taking a look at as to whether or not this can be something worrisome, particularly because, of course, India is also a nuclear armed state. And so this is, of course, something that the Foreign Office has raised, and this is something that is done so previously as well. But what exactly will it amount to, particularly in the international community, and then also in terms of the assurances needed from India to curb this illicit trade and to make sure that there is all sorts of protective measures in place? That's what we're going to be looking at in our show today. And for this and more, as always, in the studios, I've been joined by senior analyst Farrukh Pitafi and Faisal. And Faisal, I want your opinion first with reference to what has been going on, and of course, what we've seen today in terms of the arrests and the possession of such material in the market. This is not new. This is something that has been reported previously as well. These arrests have been made previously as well. And this is very sensitive material that we're talking about that's found sealed, and it's very, very difficult to get hands on. But then it seems that while it's emerging again and again in the markets, that there is a mechanism in place in terms of bringing them there. And so, of course, points towards a lack of security with reference to these protective measures. What exactly will be the concerns with regards to this material found at the hands of this black market? And then, of course, as a nuclear armed state, what must India do to control this?
Sana, excellent question. First of all, back in 2021, I wrote an article related to this very aspect, in which I highlighted, at that time I counted 32 incidents in India of illicit sale of course, uranium, illicit sale of different parts of that are being used in, nukes. So these sort of cases, at that time, they were 32. And today I was checking, the number has crossed 45, and the 45 cases, and these are the people who actually got caught red-handed while they were doing this illicit activity. There would be many more who did not even get caught. And the biggest worry is that a country, of course, having nukes and all of these sales, illicit sales, what does it suggest? It suggests that the illicit sale would end up in the illicit hands. And when we talk about the illicit hands, we shouldn't be forgetting that the kind of environment and the kind of region we are living in, of course, we have a country like Afghanistan where there are, of course, terrorist organizations who are inhibiting there. What if this kind of material ends up in their hands? What if this kind of material ends up with the countries that are, of course, pursuing their endeavors or ambitions related to attaining the nuclear power? And of course, there are countries around us that are doing it. To me, I think Indian illicit sales of nukes, they are ending up in them countries, and they might end up in the hands of terrorists themselves. And who knows, with time, there will be a sort of time when all of these terrorist organizations, they might attain the capability of tactical nukes, and behind it, the initiation of this menace, where does it start? It starts from India, because Indian nuclear program is so weak, its security is so bad, its security is in the hands of in the hands of Indian authorities, that them authorities are not making sure that this kind of arm is safe with them. It is a disaster, not only for the region itself, but of course worldwide, because if it ends up with the hands of in the hands of terrorists, then everyone is at stake. They can be used against anyone. So to me, I think IAEA, they must take note of it, and they must ensure that India attains the capability of securing its nukes and securing every department that is related to nukes. I mean, Pakistan is an example for worldwide, that Pakistan's security, when it comes to nuclear security, it's flawless. And it has been time and again, of course, appreciated by the other nuclear countries, and they have sealed it that Pakistan is at best of the security when it comes to, of course, securing the nukes. So India must do it, otherwise everyone is endangered.
Right, absolutely. And before we move on with the discussion of this topic, there is an important announcement that's flashing on the top of our screens, and it's the decision taken by the government to reduce the petroleum prices. And this is a huge decrease that has been announced by the government. It's 8.47 for the petrol price and 6.7 for diesel. And of course, we're going to be celebrating Independence Day in about an hour and a half. So this is great news coming in while we do that. And so congratulations to all our viewers, and at least we can celebrate that for now. But Farrukh, I also want your take now, coming back to our topic with reference to what is going on in India, is that, of course, the Foreign Office has asked for an independent investigation. It's talked about assurance that such an incident does not occur again, and has also called on the international community with regards to this concern. But will we be able to see that sort of transparency or sincere efforts and commitment put in by India to making sure that it definitely does not happen again, and that a true and a clear report actually comes out of such an investigation?
Right. What you're expecting this from Modi government, right? Oh, wow. Okay. Let me tell you my reaction when I read these reports. First thing that came to mind was a 2022 incident, that was Miachano incident of India, erroneously firing a BrahMos missile into Pakistan. Luckily, it was not loaded, it was not armed, but still it shows you the lack of command and control in India and the kind of situation there might be. Then I also was reminded.
Right. Unfortunately, Farrukh, I'll have to interrupt you because we unfortunately are facing some technical issues and cannot hear you properly, but we'll come back to you and making sure that we get your perspective in as well. But Faisal, I want the same question from you as well with reference to the kind of action that possibly can be taken from India. And of course, Farrukh, as has already pointed out, there's not much we can expect.
Yeah, of course, I agree with Farrukh, and I think he said the right thing, that in Modi's government, we can't expect these kind of things. And I think the element of security, when it comes to securing their own arms and the arms of mass destruction, that is missing somewhere down the line. And the probe should not be carried out by India itself, but the probe should be carried out by the international organization. Reason being, this is the hour which is a ticking bomb around us in our region. A country called India, of course, they haven't got the adequate system that ensures that India is taking care of its arms. To me, I think international organizations related to making sure that the weapons of mass destruction, they needs to be secured. I think they need to take a clear notice of this.
Right, and with reference to a clear notice, I understand what you mean in terms of putting that forward, but what exactly will that mean in terms of action taken on ground? But Farrukh, I'll take your perspective on that as well, and of course continue what you were saying earlier and complete your thought. And I hope we can hear you this time.
Let us first make sure that you can hear me.
Yes.
Although you can hear me in the studio.
I could.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, we all can.
Regarding what I was saying, so my mind immediately went to 2022 episode where India had actually fired a BrahMos missile into Pakistan erroneously. And that would show you the kind of decay of command and control in India, especially in Modi's India. Then I'm also reminded of many stories that Foreign Policy magazine actually did regarding illicit, these leakages that are there of fissile material in India. Repeatedly that happened, but then India was trying to build an underground, nuclear city in Rajasthan. And that was a story that stayed on the front screen for quite some time. And finally, what actually is happening and why that might be so, Sana, has something to do with the nature of Modi government itself. Once it was in power, one of the earliest symposiums it did was on, they called it Science Symposium, and there the assertions were hilarious, right? For example, the one paper was regarding the magical properties of cow dung, that it can actually stop radioactivity from reaching you. So instinctively I wanted to comment in those days also, but somebody told me that why do you care if they are inhaling this propaganda, they are thinking that because of that they are safe, then they let them be that way. And my point was that they might actually end up inhaling their own propaganda, and that's why start some kind of conflict that might actually come back to haunt all of us. But that is not all. In that symposium or that international conference, there were papers that would claim that the Vedic age was scientific, that that elephant god is actually a product of some kind of surgery that was performed in those days. Similarly, evolution, that various characters from Mahabharata and for that matter, various scriptures used to use high-end technology like flying saucers and all. So if there is a decay of science in such a manner, I don't hold anything against any kind of divine claims. I respect all religions equally. But my point is that when you allow dogma to inform your scientific research, and that's what we saw also during COVID days. There was a scientific study that was carried out that recitation of certain paras of Vedic texts actually can heal you of all these problems. Similarly, umpteen other things. So with that kind of a state of affairs, what becomes natural? That not most competent people will sit atop these bodies, but the people who are actually believers of whatever you're selling. And that creates a huge problem. Because of that, I think that while India has this army of very competent scientists, and we have seen that if they want to, they can send probes, very cheap probes to the moon. And I lauded that accomplishment. But on the other side, because the rot is at the top, because of that, everything seems to be falling apart. And now, because of that, fissile material, Faisal was talking about fissile material ending up with terrorists. Well, a dirty bomb of that sort is one of the fears, right, that is there. But there's another. There are autocrats, especially in very small countries. The rulers are very rich, the people are very poor. And they can acquire, similar kind of weaponry, and they can wreak havoc anywhere. So with that, it is essential that a country that has been actually escalated, that has been included in nuclear supplies group and so many other places, should be held accountable to a higher standard. And that means that IAEA should be asking them to go for a probe. But there comes the superpower of IAEA. In nuclear issues, they can have intrusive powers. If they are not satisfied with the cooperation of a government, they can dictate terms also. So I'm hoping that IAEA, and especially India, does this very strange thing also, that usually India is a big country, it has a very strong diaspora as well. And until recently, before Modi's arrival, there were people who were everywhere and everybody. So now what happens is Indian government also has weaponized its relationship with its diaspora. So what happens, they ask them to actually, keep on wilting the truth. so to speak, in service of Modi's government, not India, but Modi's government. And that's where it is important to remember that those who might be Indian embeds in IAEA should also be disciplined so that you can ensure that a probe is conducted and which is an honest one.
Right, absolutely. And Faisal, of course, this is a problem that we face whenever we talk about any issue coming in from India with reference to a lack of consequence, with the impunity that the government and its forces enjoy, and of course the kind of political lobbying and economic interests that exist with reference to different international bodies. Even with the UNSC, we have these issues. So I want your take, especially when we talk about IAEA or other agencies that of course are going to be taking a look at that internationally as well. While this lobbying exists and while there are people sitting there who are working for the BJP government, what possibly can Pakistan do with this regard in making sure that there is evidence strong enough in order to ensure that action is taken or that it is a matter of serious concern globally?
Yeah, Sana, with all of the information available related to, of course, India's involvement on Pakistan's western border as well by using the terrorists sitting in Afghanistan, I think this is the time that Pakistan's Foreign Office diplomatically, they need to pressurize, of course, IAEA on this because it's a constant threat from the Indian side. They might intentionally, of course, give out these kind of weapons to the terrorists themselves so that they can create a havoc in Pakistan. And I think this is the time that we need to further highlight it in front of IAEA and to the Western countries as well. Why I'm saying this? Because when we talk about the sale, the illicit sale of uranium, illicit sale of radioactive materials, and even some of the parts as well of which are used in bombs and all.
And enrichment.
And in majority of the cases, what has happened is that the majority of the people who were involved in these kind of illicit sales, and of course, how did it travel outside from a place where they were keeping it? The people who were there to guard that place, they were involved, and you would be amazed to listen to this, that the normal shopping bags, I mean normal street shopping bags, they were used to carry half a kg of uranium, 1 kg of uranium, and in one of the incidents it was like 1.5 kg of uranium, and they had doubled the shopper so that it doesn't fall somewhere. I mean, this is the this is the kind of security we are seeing in India, in today's India, where I mean it is a nuclear power, and this is the type of security they have. And there is no check and balance, and the people who got captured in this whole story, of course, they sell it to someone who's from gangs and all, and them gangs, where do they end up giving all of these things? Of course, they have their nexus, the world nexus, and who knows, it might be ending up African countries, it might be ending up with the terrorists and everyone. So this is what
I don't know, why did you go to Africa?
Because there are civil wars going on in African countries, in many of the African countries, so one might suggest
so are they elsewhere.
Yeah, and because African countries, it is known for the African countries that the two different sides, they always go for
don't double down on that. Go ahead.
Yeah, they always go for the behind the curtains markets, and the markets which are selling the arms and selling different parts of the arms, of course, behind the curtains, and they don't show up as
right.
And it's all the smuggling, and I think this illicit smuggling, this must be stopped, and on a very higher level, the probe must be conducted, and not from within India. I think international, as we have highlighted, and Farrukh have highlighted as well, that IAEA is the best forum to highlight it, and of course, a probe must be generated.
Absolutely, and that's extremely important, and I understand that. But I also want to understand, Farrukh, with reference to if we talk just about India as well and its own government. While, of course, there's concerns coming from Pakistan and there's international concerns, is this not also concerning for the government at a national level as well, for the country's own good? Is this not something that the BJP government is taking seriously, because this can also potentially harm India itself?
Absolutely, and I think that if there was some sanity in the system, that is exactly what would have happened, because in the end, remember, Pakistan cannot talk about all these matters because there was a crisis at the start of 2000s, and because of that international crisis and situation, Pakistan was actually helped by IAEA to safeguard its nukes, to upgrade its methods of securing its fissile material and all those issues, right? In India, the problem is because it has this privilege, it doesn't realize that it is riding a tiger. And that tiger can devour it the moment you are thrown off its back or you decide to descend. My concern is, because you asked what Pakistan can do, these days we are actually digging deep into various questions in the past. So my biggest question is, why is it that, just imagine if the story, if the shoe was on the other foot and something, a projectile like BrahMos ended up in India and erroneously fired by Pakistan, do you think that things would have been hunky-dory after that? So my question is, why was there this effort to bury this episode? Because it was a smoking gun, it was a proof of what kind of a responsible nuclear state India is. So I'll begin with that. And then, of course, you can put together a dossier that actually imperils all the country's security, not only Pakistan. Regarding Faisal's assertion that only Africa has civil wars, my humble submission is I take exception to it, because civil wars and these internecine wars between states have taken place elsewhere also. And what we have to look at is not the continent or the color of the skin, but the temperamental nature of various governments. I hope that it doesn't actually end up with that. Regarding Modi's government, one thing that I have to actually remind you of, and I think Indian opposition also took the mickey out of that whole statement. You remember when Pakistan and India post-Pulwama were confronting. At that time, Modi, after 2 months of that, he gave an interview in which he said that I told the Air Force chief that send your planes under the cloud covers, because then radars cannot actually stop it. It doesn't worry me. Leaders can be very misinformed. What worries me is that two months after the fact, he was actually bragging about it on television. That means all their journals failed to inform him that that is not how technology works.
Right.
And because of that kind of lack of spine, lack of courage, lack of professionalism, and inhaling propaganda like cow dung can save you from nuclear holocaust. I mean, that can wreak havoc on India itself.
Right.
Yeah, and Sana, one thing I wanted to mention,
very
we keep on forgetting that the degree Prime Minister Narendra Modi holds is in entire political science, a subject that does not exist at all.
For that, I'm going to cut him some slack. There are fake degrees and there are people who are not informed. Leader is a human being, is entitled to being ignorant on many things originally. But then it is the bureaucracy that is supposed to educate them. Right?
Exactly.
And if they don't have courage, if a four-star journal doesn't have courage to tell him this is what is happening and you're wrong, then you have messed up.
Absolutely. Thank you, Farrukh, and thank you, Faisal, for joining us in the debate. As always, that's all that we have time for, and we're going to be seeing you tomorrow, and of course, a very happy Independence Day for everyone celebrating, and we'll be doing that together tomorrow. Thanks a lot, and for joining the debate, and of course, stay tuned to PTV World.